this is Tony Robbins. Welcome to session number 1, your hour of power. Listen, I'm very excited for what we're going to share with you because I'm going to be sharing with you today, fundamentally, what changed my life years ago and the fundamental thing I do with just about anybody. I mean, what I do when I'm working with a president of a company or a young person, a pro athlete or a mom or a dad. Somebody wants to make a change, and we're going to go beyond philosophy into the real mechanics, the real strategy, the real tools. This is where it all starts. And to start this session, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about what's missing. Yeah, missing. What's missing from your life? You might say, wait a second, nothing's missing from my life, Tony. I'm on a roll. I'm here with you on the ultimate edge. I mean, my life is great. I'm just here because I like to improve a few things. Okay, I believe you. But if you're really honest, I bet there's something missing. And by the way, there's nothing to be embarrassed about that. We're so weird as a society. It's like we all want to be perfect. Something missing from my life? Nothing's missing. We try to cover it up even to ourselves. But I'll tell you how we know it. If you look around at most people's lives, there's this huge thing called stress. In fact, if you read interviews with people that do all these focus groups on politics, on business, on products, the number one emotion experienced by people in North America today, you know what it is? Anxiety. Not fear. Fear's not so bad. If you get fearful, your whole body kind of gears up and then something happens. Either you were fearful and you were right and you have to deal with the problem, or many times the situation gets resolved and you go, man, I was fearful and I didn't need to be, and the fear's gone. But anxiety is an emotion that most people carry with them every day. It's that feeling that never goes away. It never ends. It's a feeling that, man, if I don't run home and take care of all those emails and everything else, it's like it just gets piling up. It's more and more and more. It's the feeling that you never completely win, that you can't let go. Maybe that you can't even fully allow yourself to enjoy, much less just achieve and succeed. See, the goal of this first session of this hour of power is to get you not just to realize how extraordinary your life is and appreciate what you have, but also to decide on what you want and to make it happen by making the shifts inside yourself that are necessary. But to make that happen, you're going to have to recapture what's missing. Not only what you want and what you need, but if there's one thing missing from most people's life today because of the way we live and technology, it's time. I mean, think about it. Not just time, but time for yourself. Time to actually feel. Time to not just react to the constant stimulus. Time to sit down and dream or decide, this is how I want my life to be. This is what I'm committed to. This is how I'm going to live from this day forward. See, most of us are so caught up in making a living and reacting to the Crackberry or your iPhone or another set of emails or someone who's interrupting you in the middle of a conversation to take an email, on their phone, or the buzzing in your pocket or the stimulus of 1,000 channels. All of this set of triggers, all our normal business demands we have from our families. We want to take care of our families. We want to make a difference in the world and be the strongest we could possibly be. We want to achieve and succeed and be happy. And oh yeah, by the way, we got to deal with terrorism, economies that go up and down. And wow, what happened to that stock market? What happened to that real estate market? Or man, that subprime crisis. Ooh. Or, what's happening in my business? There's all the normal stresses of the environment. And then there's how we've begun to live. And I'm here to say to you that if you will give yourself one gift, if you give yourself the gift a little bit of time to think, to feel, to be, to condition your body and mind to work together, the whole game can change. But if you don't, you can succeed like crazy. You can make it all happen and you can still feel empty. Have you been there? Where you made everybody else feel good and you were a super dad or mom or a business person and, it's all there, but you still got stress? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're not going to have stress in your life, but I'm saying there needs to be some time for you. Do you agree with me on this? So if you do that, you can make this psychological shift that changes life, the mental shift, the emotional shift, and the physical shift. Because after all, what are we talking about here when we talk about an extraordinary life? Let's remind you. What creates an extraordinary life no matter what's happening in our life? It's this psychology. And by the way, are you experiencing extraordinary life? Are we living in a world of extraordinary life? Extraordinary resources, yes. But depending on where you live in the world, if you live in the Western world or, quote, the modern world, What you see mostly is stress. You know, I actually live all over the world in 4 different countries, but my primary residence, where I'm from originally, is the U.S. And you know, here in America, we're 5% of the world's population, but we consume 80% of the world's cocaine. I mean, that tells you something's missing. When you gotta coke yourself up, drug yourself out, hype yourself up with more caffeine, distract yourself as much as you can with your iPod, your music, anything to just change your state, it's because there's some level of fulfillment that's missing. Don't get me wrong, all those things are wonderful, but they've gotta be things that we don't rely on to be alive. Would you agree? You know, kids today are 10 times heavier than they've ever been. And when I say 10 times, I'm not exaggerating by much. We have more obese people in America and frankly in the Western world than any time in human history. We're not exactly starving for food. We're starving for wisdom. We're starving for fulfillment. We're starving for the emotions that we want. And so most of us turn to drugs. And it isn't always a medical drug or even an illicit drug, but rather it's the drug of food. It's the drug of distraction. It's the drug of alcohol or cigarettes or something to be able to just kind of cope with the stress that's in our life. But that doesn't mean we have a better life. It's just a break for a moment. And then we re-enter that same world. Part of my goal here with you in the Ultimate Edge, and even in the beginning of this session, is to set up a new game for you that you design, that you can win, and that you can condition into your system so that when things get crazy, bam, you can go there. And it doesn't require you to go to some external stimulus to feel that aliveness or to feel fulfilled or to feel at peace or to feel your center. So my goal is to get you to develop a couple of simple habits, to make a few simple decisions, to take a couple of actions that'll begin to create a momentum for your life that will take you to the point where you will stand tall and say, I love my life. This is what I've always dreamed about. I am not willing to settle for less than I can be or share or create or give in my lifetime. And I want to take advantage of this incredible time to be alive, and I want to enjoy it to its fullest, and I want to make sure I contribute in a unique way. And 500 channels of television with nothing on but infomercials, and 8 million different forms of computers and music and email and instant messages and beepers and cell phones and remote access to the internet, none of that's going to transform your life. Your life is going to change if you do nothing because life is changing so rapidly around you. Your body's going to change whether you want it to or not as time goes by. Your relationships are going to change. People are going to die. People are going to pass on. People are going to change their beliefs and values. Everything in your life is going to change. You don't have to work at change. Change is automatic. Progress is not. To get the edge, you have to decide that you're going to make progress in your life. You're going to have to decide that you're not going to be one of those people just drawn by the river, and you also can't get off the river and just sit on the side because life keeps moving. You got to step in the river and you got to direct your course by knowing what you want for your life. Now, why don't most people do this? Because most of us are so stressed, we never take time for the thing that's really missing, time for ourselves. And what's really missing is we don't ever contribute to ourselves. We're so busy taking care of our children and worrying about our spouses and our friends and making sure at work we're accomplishing the tasks on time. And the last person who gets taken care of is us. And we live in a society that's supposed to be so selfish, so many people talk about, but the truth of the matter is most of us are working so hard to make sure everybody else is happy that we aren't happy within ourselves. And so I want to talk to you about what's missing. Time for you. I mean, when do we really stop and feel? I mean, really feel, remember who we are and what we're about and what we want from our lives. Most of us never find that time. And so what happens to most of us is since we're constantly in the action of doing, you know, the old phrase, we're not human doings, we're human beings. It's kind of corny, but it's true. We don't take the time to be. And so what occurs is, out of the stress of doing, constantly competing, trying to make sure we achieve, we contribute, take care of the family, and we make everything happen, most of us to survive look for a way to stop and distract ourselves. And so we drug ourselves. And the drug isn't always regular drugs. We don't call it drugs, we call it food. Because you eat enough of that stuff and load up, guess what happens? All of a sudden you relax. You know, especially if you overeat, all that blood rushes into your stomach, you know, and you start to breathe again. Do you ever notice when you're going, go like this, you're not breathing very much? That creates just a bit of stress. And some people, that's not enough. They get CNN and then they're working on the internet simultaneously and they're getting a conversation on the other side because they figure if they can keep enough things going in their head, they can forget about all the stuff that's stressing them. You know, they don't even care about what's on the television. They don't really care about what they're surfing on the net. They just need an escape. But you know, you'll never escape your way to fulfillment. You'll never escape your way to joy. You'll never escape your way to an extraordinary life. The only way you get that is by deciding what that means to you. What is that extraordinary life? What is that fulfillment? What is it you want? And that's got to be a process that is consistent, not something you do once in a while when you got a birthday with a 0 on the end. Not something that you do, you know, at New Year's where you sit down and go, all right, you know, I better look at my life, see how I'm doing. All right, let's make some resolutions that I know I'm going to break within the week. And then I'll check in on them maybe a year from now, next New Year's, and see how I'm doing. That's called recipe for failure. Do you think most people in life are fulfilled? Or are most people in life stressed? Now, let me tell you, stress is a code word for fear. See, when somebody says they're stressed, that's because they don't want to say I'm fearful. You go, no, I'm just stressed. I have all these things to do. Well, why are you stressed about it? Well, if I don't get them done, if you don't get them done, what? Well, then everybody will be upset. Well, what if they are a little upset? Well, you know, well, then I'll have failed. Well, if you fail, what does that mean? Well, you keep on digging. If they fail, they feel like if they failed, then they're worthless. If they're worthless, they won't be loved. You know, stress comes from making things more important than they really are. And most people in life are spending all their time majoring in minor things. They're putting all their focus, all their energy, all their attention on responding to the reactions of the moment, rather than stopping in that timeless place of who you are and saying, gosh, what is it that I really want today? What do I want to create? Because I got to tell you something. Everything in the outside world, everything around you that you like or dislike, that's stressing you or that you're thrilled about, was first created on the inside. Everything that you're experiencing in your life, your relationship, the way your kids are, your job, your opportunities, it all started with decisions you made in your head. Decisions about what to focus on, decisions about what things were meaning, whether you should be upset about it, whether you should learn from it, whether this is a challenge, an opportunity, or a crisis. And the decision about what you're going to do, these decisions are shaping your life. You got to understand, getting the edge simply means this. 80% of success in anything in life is psychology. The ability to manage your mindset, your ability to find the opportunity in any situation. This isn't stupid positive thinking where you just sit around and, you know, go to your garden and say there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I don't believe in that kind of positive thinking. It's garbage. There's weeds there and you got to pull them out. But you got to have enough intelligence, enough psychology to say, I'm not going to see it worse than it is. Because, you know, people say I'm skeptical, I'm pessimistic. Oh, garbage. You're fearful. If you say you're skeptical or you're pessimistic, what you're really saying is, I'm afraid of being disappointed. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to look naive. So I don't want to be hurt again. But I got news for you. If you're going to have an extraordinary quality of life, if you're going to get the edge in life, where the passion and the juice and the joy and the fulfillment and the happiness and the love and the family is, where the Quan is, like Jerry Maguire talked about, right? Where you got it all. You got the love, the respect, the connection, the contribution, the money, the fun, the fame, the whatever. Whatever your definition of the ultimate level of life, that edge comes when you master your mind and your emotions. But you know what? 20% of your success is mechanics, and they do play a role. And sometimes our mechanics are getting in the way of our psychology. Sometimes we've structured our life where there's no time to think or be. So you say, okay, if you ran into a rave, what am I supposed to do? All right, you start to kind of say, I should take some time for myself. Where am I going to find that? I got to get up. I got to take the kids to school. I got to make it to work. I get it all done. I come back home. I got to pick them up. We got to take them to dance lessons, to soccer. Well, you know, then I got to work on my homework. Then I got to answer all my emails. When am I going to do this stuff? Stop. We all get what we have to have. That's it. The most basic principle getting the edge is for you to understand and for me to remember, for all of us to remember, we all get our musts, we don't get our shoulds. You know, everybody's got a list of shoulds. I should take time to work out. You know, I should take time for myself. I should actually go on a diet. I should make more calls. I should just allow myself to listen to some music and meditate a little bit. I should do my taxes. But most people doing this stuff, they just what I call should all over themselves. You don't want to should all over yourself. Here's what's true. What you must do, what you believe is a must, happens. Right now, you're earning what you must earn and not a dime more. Not what you want to, don't get me wrong. And listen, I know I sound like I'm ranting. That's because I'm a nut. But by being a nut, I've achieved a lot. I've achieved a lot of things in my dreams and goals that have happened because what I am is I'm unreasonable in my expectations. So if I sound unreasonable, it's not to be disrespectful and it's not just a rant. It's because I know I've spent the last 30 years of my life now with more than 3 million people from every walk of life, from presidents of countries to presidents of companies to parents to children, best sports people in the world. I've had the chance to find the difference in people, and the difference is in their unreasonable psychology. That unreasonableness has gotten them to say, this is a must and I will settle for nothing less. And those individuals, whether it's a woman like Rosa Parks on a bus who says, no, I will. Then this is the first session in you reclaiming your power. It's the first session in you putting your foot down and saying, I will not be denied. It's the first session in you saying, my body, my mind, my emotions, my relationships, my finances, advantage. See, I'll give you an example. Did you see that movie that won the Academy Award, Life is Beautiful? It's a story of a man who has an extraordinary life. Not because he has more money than anybody else, not because he's in a situation where everything is easy, but because he's alive. He has this joy about him. And by the way, if you've actually ever met Roberto Benigni, the man who plays this character, you know that he lives this way day to day. You know, he was authoring this thing from himself. He's such a joyous guy. And when he won the Academy Award, you never saw so much emotion. He was like a little boy, and everybody loved it because nobody else has the guts to be that way. Or they've forgotten what it feels like to just feel, to be alive. What makes him extraordinary? An extraordinary psychology, an extraordinary mindset, an extraordinary way of looking at the world. And in the movie, the man has that, doesn't he? And who does it affect? Everyone. Everyone within the realm of his influence. His wife feels like the most cherished person on earth, and so does he. Because when you give that kind of love and that kind of joy, people give it back. It's infectious. His son seems so happy, and they're in the middle of the Nazis taking over their country, and if you know the story, I won't run it, you know that they get picked up. And there's such a connection amongst the family that the wife is not being sent away and she gets on the train with them. And there in the middle of this camp, this man with his extraordinary psychology figures a way of looking at the situation for his son, presenting it so that his son sees it as a game. Isn't life a game anyway? Instead of this horrible situation. And because he has that perspective, in the end, his family survives. See, if you want your family to survive, if you want them to succeed, if you want them to have joy, if you want your kids to have a lasting love, if you want to be able to give gifts in your life and not just take care of yourself, then you got to have an extraordinary psychology within yourself. It's not where you live physically, it's where you live internally. There are two worlds, the inside world and the outside world. We can't totally control the outside one, but we have absolute control of the inside one. But you know what? Most of us are too busy to take any time to check out and see how it's going on in here. Or we just accept it as this is the status quo. This is who I am. This is my life. Or I'll get to it later. Mañana. I got to handle this first. Something else that's not so important. I want to invite you, my friend, to take the time to say, I'm going to have every day an hour of power. Every day I'm going to have at least 30 minutes to thrive, or 15 minutes to be fulfilled, for God's sakes, where I'm going to take those 15 minutes and I'm going to focus on everything I'm grateful for. I mean, if we're going to have a life, we got to have time, and the time has to have some specific things we do, and one of those is gratitude. If you want to know what's the quality of your life, how much time do you spend in gratitude? How much time are you grateful and appreciative to the point that emotion wells up in you? I'm feeling it now. I'm so grateful to God. I'm so grateful to have the privilege to serve you right now. So if you can get to that state, everything changes. I'll give you an example. If you think about being fearful, when you're fearful, you're not grateful. And everybody's got fears. Fear they're not enough. Fear that it won't work out. Fear they won't be loved. Everybody's got that at some level unconsciously. We're human. So you can put the fear aside when you're grateful. I don't just mean intellectually. Yeah, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I mean stopping, thinking, seeing, and feeling. So I'm going to walk you through a system that includes gratitude. Every day of our life, we got to have a vision. Every day of our life, we got to have something that excites us. When people tell me, oh, I'm bored, I'm tired, that thing is boring. No, you're boring. Because you don't have something that excites you in your life. You haven't come up with a vision. You haven't come something to move towards. We all need something that's going to make us use more of who we are. Our courage, our passion, our joy. Face our fears. Build our emotional muscles. But you don't build emotional muscles when you do the same thing day after day after day. What you get is a life that's unfulfilling. So we've got to have a vision. So every day I'm going to take you through a simple process that'll get you to expand your vision so you have a compelling future. That thing that makes you want to get up early. There's a reason. You got to have a reason. And I have friends that have sold their companies. One guy sold his company and made almost $1 billion in cash, about 800 million plus. And he was so excited for about 2 months, maybe 3. But you know what? After that, there's only so much time you want to sit on the beach by yourself because everybody else is working, and doing something and being productive. There's only so many cocktails you can take. There's only so many, movies you can watch. There's a limit to it. What he needed was a new vision. Anytime you achieve a goal, as you get close to it, you better set up the next one real quick, because otherwise it's kind of like postpartum. You were looking forward to that baby, and now you got him. And sometimes in the middle of the night, you're going, what did I do here? Have you ever had that experience? I got 4 kids. I can relate. I hope you can. But you know what? You also have the experience on the other side of it. It's so wonderful. It's kind of like you got to have a vision for what your life's about now. Without a vision, people perish. And you got to have a daily vision that excites you. Otherwise, life becomes mundane. And there's nothing worse than an okay life. I told you, you're not going to have that when we're done here. I promise you, if you get this little habit, you won't have to settle for a mundane life. What people are going to go is, what happened to you? Because there's an excitement in creation. There's not a lot of excitement in maintenance. You have to maintain your body. You got to maintain things, but creating things, that's what God created us for. Gave us the gift to make choices that could create new things, businesses, ideas, families, friends, a garden. And it's available to every one of us. But if you don't get a vision each day, then the day is not going to have much juice, is it? So every day there's got to be a little time for vision, right? Time for gratitude, time for vision. Every day you got to move. I'll tell you why most people are unhappy. They don't move. Look at our lives today. Most people live in a box, don't they? And then what do? They get up in the morning, have a box cereal breakfast, right? And then they get in their box and they drive. And sure enough, they drive to their box office. They go up a box elevator. They type on a box. They talk on a box. They have a box lunch. They drive their box home. They turn a box to be entertained. And maybe they just really go for the variety and have a cylinder to try and change their state. Listen, life has got to be about movement. When you move, you're alive. Emotion comes from motion. The more you move, the more you feel. Motion in your voice. For me to have this voice change, I'm changing the way I move. You saw me. You're going to love it. And I will tell you, I've talked to people who've done this for years and then they stop for a while and then something else showed up in their life and they know exactly where to go to get back on target. They come back to this hour of power. And you don't have to do the full hour. Just do 15 minutes to be fulfilled. Do 7, 8, or 9 minutes where you move your body. You get focused on what you're grateful about. You focus on what you really want. You do some incantations and you'll be rocking and rolling. And if you do that, you'll get momentum. Pretty soon you go, oh, let me do at least 15 minutes. Oh, man, this is feeling good. Let me go for a half hour. Don't you deserve at least 30 minutes out of your day? Out of 24 hours? An hour out of 24 hours to have the power and the juice and the excitement and the strength be activated in you? Listen, all this stuff's in you. But if we don't focus, if we don't activate it, we're not going to have the power and fulfillment we deserve. But if you do, I'm telling you, life, whatever you've dreamed about creating or shaping or experiencing, it'll be a cartoon compared to the experience you'll actually have of your life or what you'll really create. I know this not only from my own experience, but from millions of other people who do it. This has got to become your baby, your time. Take it, use it, live it. By the way, this is a process you're going to do for yourself. I'll be here for you on this audio program, this Ultimate Edge, but you don't need me. This becomes a ritual you can do on your own. You ever want to kick in the butt or you want some guidance? Come back here and I'll be here for you. But this is something you can do for the rest of your life. It's not creating any dependency. This is your life. This is your process, and it'll be your reward. So, how does it work? Well, let's do this first. It's time for you to make some discoveries. So I'm going to ask you, just take a moment. And if you have our journal there, you can do it in a journal. You can do it on a piece of paper. You don't make it rules-driven. Just do it. Don't just do it in your head. I want you to write down all the emotions you experience in an average week. And on one side, write all the good ones, the other side, all the bad ones. Now, when I say bad ones, there really are no bad emotions, but the ones that are painful and you don't like. So all I want you to do is write them down. And when you write them down, try not to edit them. Don't try and say, well, just do it this way. If you experience this emotion on a consistent basis, doesn't mean every day, but at least once a week, write it down. The ones you consistently feel, not the one once in a while you feel this feeling, because what this is going to tell us is where you're really living right now. This doesn't tell me your income. I don't care. But I care about what you're passionate about. I care about what hurts you. I care about what you love. I care about what moves you. And you do too. And you don't even have to tell me the what's. Let's just figure out the feelings first. So please take a moment right now, because now we're going to begin to stop talking and we're going to start the process of doing. First step here is let's figure out where you are. Write down now, on one side, all the emotions you consistently feel in a week that are positive. On the other side, all negative. So stop the tape right now, or if it's a CD, just pause it and get yourself to this right now. Go ahead. Are you still listening? I'm not going to continue until you do this. Come on here. You got to get there right. Don't just listen. Okay, if you're in your car and you say you can't do it, then turn off the CD or tape, stop it, pause it, and do it in your head at least. Or pull the car over. You're worth figuring out where you are. Cars are going to go by. You're going to drive the rest of your life. You're still going to get there. It'll take 3 minutes. Come on, be one of the few who do. Pull over. That's it. Pull over right now. Sit down and write this out just for a second. I promise you it'll be worth it. Go ahead and do it. Do it right now. So now you have some emotions that you really want. How do you create them? And you have some emotions you don't want. How do you get rid of them? Well, what if I told you you literally could change how you feel in an instant? Well, you know this is true from your past experience at times, right? There are times where you're totally upset and then something got your attention and now you're laughing. You know, people can be literally at a funeral and they're in a terrible place and all of a sudden something cracks them up. I mean, it's pretty rare, but it has happened. People can be in a place where they're in the worst situation and somehow they find all their determination. How to do that specifically is what I want to show you real quickly now. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of it, but I'll give it to you in 3 parts. 3 things you need to feel anything. These are the reasons why you feel anything. In other words, if you feel sad or upset or frustrated or depressed, there's only 3 reasons. And if you change any one of these 3, you're going to change how you feel. And if you change all 3, you'll change how you feel completely. If you're feeling happy, if you're feeling excited, if you're feeling euphoric, if you're on a roll and you want to know why you feel that way, yeah, maybe great things are happening in your life, but there's a reason why you feel that way in this moment. Sometimes you have great things happen in your life and you still don't feel great. So how do you do that? There's 3 reasons. 3 things have to be in place for you to feel great. I call these 3 reasons the triad because there are 3 patterns that if you do these 3 patterns in your body in a certain way, you'll get a certain result, and it's like a recipe. You do one recipe, you get one result. You do another one, you get a different result. You get one kind of cake or another. So let's give you an example. I have an initial seminar, an immersion, where in one weekend, people get massive momentum to change their life. It's called Unleash the Power Within. It's a chance in a weekend to really step up and say, I'm going to transform it. I don't care if it's my body, my emotions, a fear, my job. It's time to do it. And we put people in an environment for 3 days of total immersion. That is a blast. And people come out transformed. That process, though, very often, one of the first things I'll do is I'll ask people, what do you really want? I'll take people in the audience. We got 1,500, 2,000 people in that type of program usually. And they'll say, oh, well, I want to make, $1 million. I want to make $1 billion. I want to help my kids get through school. I want to have more confidence. I want to lose 57 pounds. They say, okay, great. Why do you want these things? If you lost the 57 pounds, if you made the $1 billion, what are you going to get? And sooner or later they'd say, well, if I change the world, it'll make a difference. And I'll say, yeah, but what will that give you? And eventually say, well, it'll make me feel good, like my life had meaning. Or they'll say, if I lost 47 pounds, I'd feel more sexy, or I'd feel more energetic. Or they'd say, if I made this money, I'd feel freedom or power or secure. Whatever it is you want, you only want it because you think it's going to give you a feeling. And the truth of the matter is you can have that feeling right now if you just change these 3 patterns I'm going to tell you about. So the first pattern that determines how you feel is not the event, but what you do with your body in this moment. Right now, you're feeling, whatever you're feeling right now as you're listening to me, is related first to how you're using your body. If you're slumped over, if you've not been using it, if you're tired, you probably feel different than if you're listening to me walking right now as an example. Now, I'll give you a more specific example. If I were to tell you that there was a depressed person behind curtain number 1 over here, and for a $100,000 donation to your favorite charity, if you could describe them physically without seeing them, I bet you could do it, couldn't you? What's their posture like? Say it, or think it at least. You can say it, no one's going to hear it. You're probably in the car. You're walking, people talk on phones all the time. They don't know what's going on. Speak to me. Seriously, what's their body like? First, their posture's probably what? Slumped. Where are their eyes? Down. Where's their head? Down. What's their breathing like? Full or shallow? Of course it's shallow. Their facial expression, up and tight or slack? You know it's slack. Now, how come you know all these things without me telling you? Because you've practiced this stuff before, haven't you? We all have if we've ever experienced this. Now, if you do this with your body, I don't care who we are, if you do these things to your body, you're going to feel lousy. You're going to feel depressed. Now, if you change the way you use your body, if you put your shoulders back, if you breathe, if you use your voice in a different way, if you move or gesture at a different tempo, it's hard to feel depressed in that way. In fact, there was a research study that was done early in my career that was done at UC Berkeley. And they did something that sounded insane. Traditionally, if somebody's depressed, if they go to a traditional psychiatric approach, today we live with a philosophy that depression is merely a Prozac deficiency. That we live in this world today that if things aren't working out, let's not resolve what's going on inside you, let's just drug you. It's called better living through chemistry. Yeah, just drug you and keep on going. We do the same thing with kids today. We got this attention deficit disorder. They've now upgraded it to ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. This couldn't be the fact that kids are overstimulated, don't get enough focus or attention, and don't know how to use their energy in a world where things are going so slow when they're learning in school compared to how they are on the internet or on MTV or anything else. It must be that we should drug them into submission so they get as slow as us and we're comfortable. It's an interesting way that we look at life today. The truth of the matter is these kids are using their bodies in ways that aren't acceptable, but they're not being directed. We go for the quick hit. We want the instant solution, even if it isn't the long-term solution that makes us more healthy. You can get a solution, but it may not be sustainable in a healthful way. The bottom What do I do? Let me try it. When I'm feeling that good, what do I focus on? What do I really focus on? And by the way, what does it mean to me when I focus on it? Because you can focus on something and one person looks at it and says, because that happened, that's why I can never be close to another man or woman in my life. That's why I can never trust again. And somebody else had the same experience. They go, because that happened, you know what? I've learned so much about myself. And because that happened, I appreciate the person I'm with now so much. You can't have a foreground without a background, right? That's the secret to life. We have absolute choice. We have absolute control about how we feel. And whatever feelings we put in our lives on a regular basis will determine the quality of our lives. So you can have frustration, anger, upset, overwhelm, insecurity. You can be three things: massive changes in your physiology that make you feel great, massive changes in your focus that make you focus specifically on gratitude and specifically on what you want to have happen and feeling like it's already been achieved. And then massive changes where you push your body to be stronger and you make some incantations. You say some phrases over and over, at least 5 or 10 minutes of it. You will have conditioned your mind, your body, your emotions, and your spirit will soar. And now you will deal with problems radically differently. There won't be problems, there'll be challenges for you. And more importantly, you'll be excited to connect with people. You'll be excited about your projects. You will affect people around you in a different way because you will have an extraordinary psychology. Now, by the way, these fundamental rituals, they really come down once again to doing something to change your body, something to change your focus, something to change your language. And where did I come up with this? Well, the biggest changes of my entire life have always been engaging those three forces. I mean, I've called it the triad then, or the hour of power, but these are the things that changed me. When I was in my very early stage of my life and my mother and father got in this major conflict and my mom got really upset, so she kicked my father out, and you get a sense of who was the power in the relationship by that description, don't you? But the bottom line is she thought I was on his side, so I went out next, and it was Christmas Eve, and I had to figure out how to survive. And so one of the things I did was I stayed at some friends' houses. I dealt with, I lived a pretty intense and crazy life at that stage. I was 17 years old, and I was working as a janitor. And I worked in a place called San Marino, California, and I was living in a city called Azusa. I was still in high school, and I would literally take buses to be able to get to this place in San Marino. I worked with two banks, Security Pacific Bank and Lloyd's. And I loved being a janitor because I could work in the middle of the night and you got paid for results. Instead of lollygagging along, man, I kicked butt. I went in there, put, the equivalent of my iTunes on, but in those days, it was this big 8-track portable player. That shows you how ancient I am. But I carried it around from room to room, and man, I just kicked butt. And I got through that thing, they gave me 6 hours to do, and I think I used to do it, if I remember right, like in 3.5 or 4. But it took hours to get there, hours to get back. Not just one bus, but I had to make connections on them. So long story short, I'm doing this, I'm not getting much sleep and getting up in the morning, going to school, and I'm burning out, but I'm still sticking with it. And I'm upset with my mom because I feel like she is not listening to me. And frankly, this is not an attack on my mom. Thank God she did this. This made me so strong. At the time, I hated her guts, honestly. But, she was pushing me in ways I didn't really realize at the time. You don't always understand as a kid. I just had my own story about it. But all I knew was I was trying to survive. And the bottom line of the story, and the reason I'm telling you this in terms of rituals, is this. I'd finish maybe 1:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd get out there and I'd jump on that late night bus and start the long journey home. Well, interestingly enough, on this night, I get out there, I'm waiting for the bus, and I'm going, I know I didn't miss it. And I kept my eye out on it because, I couldn't afford to miss the bus. It's the only bus till morning, or, I don't know when, hours and hours later. I never discovered that, but I knew I had to be on that bus. And nothing came. An hour went by and nothing came. An hour and a half went by. Now I don't know the real time. I can't remember honestly, but somewhere around 2:30, 3 in the morning, and I'm freaking out. And so sure enough, guess what? Somebody comes by and goes, "Hey kid, what are you doing?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" This man, he said, "The buses aren't coming," because I was sitting on the bench. He said, "There's a bus strike." So what do you do? I didn't have any friends with cars. I couldn't, quote, call home and get a lift. So I finally thought, I got to get home. And I started walking. I thought, at this pace of walking, I am never going to get there. So inside of me, something just snapped. Something got mad. Something got intense. And what I started to do was started to jog. I thought, I can't jog all this way home. And then something inside of me went, you're going to find the way. You're going to find the way. And I started doing these incantations. In those days, I'd just started reading these books on programming my mind, some of those old basic books. And I started, as I was jogging, going, every day in every way, I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day in every way, I'm getting stronger and stronger. And then after doing this over and over again, it became like an addiction. You ever had one of those songs get stuck in your head? Did you ever make that fatal mistake of going to Disneyland and riding on that ride called It's a Small World After All? And then that song is stuck in your head for like next 3 weeks in 167 languages. Well, this can happen in a positive way. This incantation, I kept changing. I'm getting healthier and healthier. I'm getting stronger and stronger. Now, honestly, I think in the very beginning I went, I'm going to show her. I'm going to show her. It was anger initially, honestly. I'm going to show my mom she can't stop me kind of thing. And then it converted into joy. I ran from San Marino to Azusa. How long is that accurately? I can't tell you to the exact mile, but it's roughly 12 miles. I'd never run 3 miles in my life. But I want to tell you something. At the end of that run, I never felt stronger in my entire life. I felt like I could storm through anything. Nothing was going to stop me. And that created a whole new momentum in my life. And what was it? Physiology, focus, and language at the most intense level. And literally to this day, when I have faced things in my life over the last 20, 30 years, I can pull back up that moment, that experience, without even thinking about it. It almost gave me, it's like it made that fundamental muscle. Now, after that time in my life started to take off. And eventually, obviously, mended things with my mom and my family, and everything became beautiful. And equally importantly, I grew as a man. I wasn't a stupid boy who was just focused on himself. I really started to shift how I could contribute, how I could grow, how I could make a difference. And in a short period of time, at a very young age, here I was, a very successful young man. I was written up in newspapers and magazines. My nickname was Wonder Boy. My ego started to grow real big, And the interesting thing happened was, I then got beyond my comfort zone. I started feeling that third pillar. I didn't call it then, but I started feeling these inner conflicts. I mentioned this when I talked to you a little bit in that first session on decisions and destiny, but I found myself in a place where I was making a lot of money, and I grew up very poor. And I had this blueprint, this mindset that said, man, I've gone through, 3 divorces with my mom. I've seen these men come and go. All of those arguments were based on financial stress. That's the story I had in my head. Obviously, it was more than that. They had conflicts in their values and their beliefs, but I simplified it to that. So I thought, man, if I can earn enough money, I can make everybody happy. Love will be there. But it's not what happened. I went back and started hanging out with my friends, and all of a sudden they started like, yeah, you got money now. And I had all this judgment. I was never doing it for money. I was doing it because I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to have some financial freedom too. So what I started doing? I started to sabotage myself. I didn't do it consciously. I did it unconsciously. Started not showing up for key meetings. Started showing up late. Started snapping at people. And I'm a loving guy. And I'd feel bad about it. And then I'd apologize to the person, but then I'd go do it again. It was like unconsciously. I wanted to get back to where I knew everybody would be okay with me. They'd be okay if I was successful, but not too financially successful. And the bottom line is, if you've heard the story of my life before, people come up and say, how did you change your life? When you're back there in Venice, that's where I was. I lost everything financially. I moved into this cheap little, 1-room bachelor apartment, not a bedroom, just 1 room. I was living in that room. I had my little cooking plate I had. I used to wash my dishes in the bathtub. 2516 Pacific Avenue, apartment 3A, if you ever want to check it out. I literally went back there years ago and knocked on the door to see who was living there and see if I could help him out, see if lightning could strike twice in the same place. That's a whole nother story I'll tell you sometime. But the point is, I found myself in this place where I was waking up each day feeling sorry for myself. My life was a mess. I was watching television all the time. I was eating to try and fill myself up because I wasn't filled up emotionally. And I gained 38 pounds in about 2.5 months. And again, that's not easy to do. So, what did I do? I kept eating and just not moving as much as possible. But what changed me was a series of events, one in particular, but a series of them that really made me feel humiliated, made me look at my life and say, man, somewhere inside of me, I know I'm more than what I'm demonstrating mentally and emotionally and physically and financially and spiritually. And the day that all snapped for me, the way I changed it was with the same ritual. I didn't think about it consciously. I just went, look, I got this big gut. I got no energy. I feel like I got no control over my life. So I decided I was going to go on a run. Now, going on a run is not something I'd done for several years at that point, at least 1.5 years. And I had this big gut. And so I put on, in those days, what used to be known as a Walkman. Don't know if you're ancient enough to remember those as well. You can see how I was moved from 8 tracks all the way into the Walkman, this giant little device with a headphone. And I remember I played some music from a group called Heart. Do you remember them? They had a song called Barracuda. And I got on that beach and I ran as hard as I could humanly run until I felt like I was going to spit up blood, and I kept on doing it. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but you know what I was doing. I was making a big change in my physiology. And I used the music to put myself in a peak state of focus. And when I was done, I took out this journal, I wrote a line down the middle of the page, and on one side I wrote everything I was committed to having in my life. Everything. And the other side I wrote everything I'm committed to not having in my life, which is most of how I was living. The relationship I was in, the way I was living physically, the way I was financially. I didn't even know how I was going to change, but I had an absolute vision for what I wanted. I was in a peak state physically, and I started doing incantations. I started doing these. I started going, God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence, for I am one with God and God is everything. I remember it so vividly. I'm not looking at some script right now. I remember it vividly because I did it day after day after day. And I didn't just say these over and over again. I visualized God's wealth is circulating in my life, and I see the wealth of God coming to me in the form of love and joy and connection and making a difference. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance, and I'd imagine avalanches of joy, of happiness, of impact, of money, of love, of fun, everything. I'd image it. I'd feel it in my body as it was happening. God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence. And I would say it with that intensity and see it. For I'm one with God and God is everything. Over and over and over and over again. Till I would wake up thinking these thoughts. God's wealth is circulating in my life. I would feel this connection to God. I'd feel this connection to nature. I'd feel a sense of abundance. And sure enough, whatever you focus on, where focus goes, energy flows. I started looking for answers. What did I do? An hour of power. And I continue to do this today. Anytime I want to strengthen myself, and sometimes I'm not even trying to strengthen, I just want to get in the state of momentum, I go and do my hour of power. And I do it different ways, but it always includes a change in the physiology, my focus, my language, my sense of vision and gratitude. And I can do it different times and create all kinds of